I mean, again, if we were going to do television and 13 episodes of this, we might go that way more because you could do more characterization. But because we had to be linear with three films, you had to pick and choose where you needed to go with this.
I loved part one. I loved part one so much to the point that a part of me was just wondering why are we saying goodbye to this universe so soon? If you guys could, just to start us off.
Well, again, we already pre-planned this years ago. That they were basically wanting us to do this new universe in 10 movies. That's all we were given. They didn't want to go the stretch of the previous, Tuckerverse of 20 movies. They felt that was too long. So it was already with DC, Jim Lee, also Warner Brothers. They already wanted just a 10 movie arc, and whatever happened afterwards would be someone else, another producer, a couple of producers would do another universe, which turned out to be the James Gunn verse. So is it
So
called the
yeah, we
Gunverse
would have
yet?
we would
No.
have done honestly as we would have been happy to do 20, but when you want to do 20 and someone offers you 10, you say yes anyway. We just had to pack as many characters and arcs into the first seven and the shorts. Don't forget the shorts,
Mhm.
because they're germane and canon to the end. So we really we try not to waste any time, and hopefully everything we set up pays off in these last three movies. It's great to hear that you like them. I like your lantern battery behind you, and as
Oh,
Jeff
I will
said,
do you. I will do you one better. I am a huge nerd, so like trust me. When my editor was like, "Do you want to do the Crisis Junket?" I'm like, yeah." So, um, I also want to ask, like, what is the most, because as someone who read the original Crisis comic, I must ask you guys, for all three of you, like, what is the most challenging aspect of adapting such a beloved story that also comes with its own complexity at the same time?
well, it couldn't be more complex, that's for sure. And the one of the challenges is that our audience has knows this story, and they may have known it since they were a child. And so if you change something, they're going to say that was my favorite scene. And we don't have, frankly, we even with three movies, we don't have the bandwidth to do everybody's favorite scene, and we don't, which is why Alexander Luthor is a head on the wall. And so that is one of the challenges, and the other is picking what is absolutely germane to the story. And to some extent, we took what people remember, which is what we try to do with all of our adaptations. Is it's not so much what is beat for beat the story, but when you think about that story, what are the elements you remember? And half the time, because the George Perez's visuals are so strong and those splash pages are so memorable, we sort of use them as act breaks, I mean, essentially it's a 9 act story, spread out over three movies. And so we wanted to get to all those crisis covers, not all of them, but a lot of them.
I also ask because we had seen Crisis in live action just a few years ago in the Arrowverse, and there was a lot of parallels to especially a lot of the Baron Iris stuff, because also I'm a huge, that is one of like my top favorite ships of all time. So like, did you guys like were you guys did you guys look at what they had done in live action, try like to maybe try pay some homage to it, but also kind of find a way to differentiate from what they
Oh, we
did?
didn't. I mean, at the time, again, we already were figuring out that we were going to do Crisis before they even were filming anything on their Crisis. So we didn't. I didn't look at anything. I know Jim probably didn't watch anything on that to influence them. We just went more on the basis of the George Perez, Marv Wolfman version. So we stuck with that pretty much visually and story wise. The Arrowverse is its own. I mean, again, if we were going to do television and 13 episodes of this, we might go that way more because you could do more characterization. But because we had to be linear with three films, you had to pick and choose where you needed to go with this to keep it
So
moving.
my friend Eric Carrasco, who's written for us before, had got a job on Supergirl, And
Oh, yeah.
he contacted me and said, they're doing Crisis, because he knew we were already building up our Crisis world. And there's an element of, oh, yay. And because part of it is it takes so long to do animation that we announce Crisis a couple of years after they've done it in live action, and they go, oh, I can't believe they're doing Crisis again. And we're like, well, we didn't know they were going to do Crisis. So we did avoid looking at it because we didn't want to do the same thing, and we didn't want to, make the mistake of just like arbitrarily doing something completely different so that it, to stand out. So we just followed the book and the themes as closely as possible.
Yeah, and if there are things similar in the Arrowverse, basically, as ours, it's mainly because they're following the same source material anyway. So
there's definitely a lot of the Bear and Iris fans, were like online. They were like eating this all up because there were a lot of shots, because everyone, they loved that couple so much that they were like, there was a lot of parallels to what we've seen in live action between those two, and now seeing them in animation. So it's more so complimentary than anything, not so much like, oh, they're doing it again. It was more like, oh my god, we get to live some of the best parts of this other franchise now in animated form.
Wow, that's nice to hear. Certainly that's what popped most in the Flash series to me, is that relationship. And it's certainly what we wanted to lean into for the Flash in this, because it's a beautiful love story, and not all heroes get it. And there is a lighthearted, there's some serious stuff to it, but it's a kind of a joyful respite in a world of action and violence.
I also have to ask, because we get a little tribute to George Perez at the end of part 1, and I was wondering, do we might there be some other tributes to him in part 2 and 3, maybe like Perez Street or something like that, because he's such an iconic artist, and he's one of the reasons we have Crisis to begin with. So I just wanted to see if you guys could tease anything.
There were some on my part, a lot of visuals that we used from a lot of the comics that we tried to pick up on throughout it, that George Perez had set up. And we tried to bring those into the movie on a regular basis. Might
there be a chance that we see other DC animated universe in part 2 and 3? Because with the multiverse, anything is possible. Like, what are the chances that the Tomorrowverse might meet the Bruce Timmverse or the Young Justice universe and so on? Like, what can you tease?
Well, in part 2, there is one or two characters maybe coming in from that universe. Yes,
there's a Bugs Bunny cartoon where with Muggsy, the gangster character, and he says, and my son is always quoting, he says, "You might, Rabbit, you might." So actually, that's the cop who says that, not Muggsy. Apologies.
No worries. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much again. I loved part 1. I'm just waiting for you guys to drop the date for part 2 and 3. So thank you so much for taking on this story, and as we get to say goodbye to this universe, and I wish you a lovely day.